All right, Alex, I have to be honest with you. When you told me that you wanted to talk about SEO, I was really nervous about it. And there is a good reason why.
Join us for Impact Live 2024 in Hartford, Connecticut this October 14th through the 16th. Over 3 days, business owners, CEOs, and marketing and sales leaders will learn proven strategies to drive business growth. Attend expert-led sessions on marketing, sales, leadership, and AI, and get a chance to network with industry pros just like yourself. Discover how companies like yours are dominating their markets. Secure your spot at impactplus.com/impact-5. And for all of our Endless Customers listeners, we have an exclusive discount code that'll save you $100. So when you're on the checkout page, just enter the code ECPOD100 in all caps for $100 off. We'll see you there at Impact Live 2024 up in Hartford, October 14th through the 16th.
Welcome back to Endless Customers, the show that teaches you how to earn trust and win more business in the age of AI. I'm Alex Winter, your host, and today we are joined by Mary Brown, who's a lead web strategist here at Impact. Mary, what's up?
Hey, Alex.
How's it going?
It's good. Glad to be here as always.
Glad to have you here. This is becoming more of a regular thing, and I like it.
I'm digging it.
I'm digging it, too. We have great conversations. We got a great topic today, so let's just not waste any more time. Let's get right into it.
Do it.
Okay, so we're talking about how to get found online.
Yes.
Which seems kind of basic. It's like, duh, everyone wants to get found online, but it's a lot easier said than done, and people have different ideas of what that means and what that translates into in every business and industry. So there's layers to this. Mm-hmm. So where's a good place to start in kicking off this conversation about getting found and helping your chances of being found by more of your best customers?
Yes. So can I be real with you for a minute?
Please.
Can we have a little moment of vulnerability here?
I expect nothing less. Let's go.
Okay. When you told me you wanted to talk about SEO, I was a little nervous because the honest truth right now is that the tectonic plates beneath our feet in the world of search are shifting, and they are shifting dramatically.
Yes, they are.
Right? This podcast, we talk about AI all the time. AI is disrupting SEO and disrupting search and organic. And I would be completely lying to you if I said I could read the future and that I could tell you exactly what's going to happen. And I know absolutely everything that's happening with SEO right now. I know the way things have been. I know that the landscape is shifting, and I know that there are things that we need to do differently and some things we need to do the same. And we will talk about that. But this is a brave new world right now.
It is a brave new world. And I totally love and respect that you just put it out there and said that. And I think for everyone watching and listening, the humbleness is great, but also it's important for people to know that if you're talking to somebody who says they're an SEO expert and that AI isn't going to affect it and that they know all this stuff, that might be a red flag. You may want to just reassess that situation, because you're right. The landscape is shifting dramatically.
Yes. And if people are saying that nothing has changed, that is a huge red flag, because things are changing. It's not the same that it used to be. So
those people are the same people that are still using AOL, right? Sorry, if you're using AOL, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you down, but get Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo, something. I don't know, anything. All right, we're being silly, but let's talk about SEO for real though, and what people should be thinking of with all the shift that's happening in general.
Yeah, I think the thing I want to start with is that SEO is still important, and it's still SEO basics are important for a number of reasons. So what are some of those reasons? One is that we know that competition online is increasing all the time. Websites are increasing. I'm making more and more websites all the time. I know personally that we're just, sending them out there all the time. And you need to be able to compete, and you need to be able to compete online. And so effective SEO is still a way to stand out. You have to be able to stand out online amidst the noise, and you've got to be able to be there and have that presence there. So that has not gone away, and that has not changed. I will say that user search behavior, that is the thing that is definitely changing, right?
Yes, the behavior and how people are searching for things is changing rapidly.
Yes, exactly. And so they're finding you in different ways, right? So social media is a huge way that people are going to find you now. You've got to be on social. You've got to be on Meta. You've got to be on TikTok. You've got to be, and I'm not saying that every business needs to be on TikTok.
Sure.
find the platforms that are right for you, that make sense where your audience is. That's where you need to be. Just understand that a lot of audiences are shifting to these other platforms. We know that YouTube is the biggest search engine right out there. You got to be on YouTube. So embrace search on social media platforms. If you are not already there, you have to do that.
Yeah, and I think too, just to jump in, that's a really interesting point, only because that's not a new idea. That's something we've been talking about with the Ask You Answer for almost a decade now. You always want to meet people where they are. So you need to know your personas, you need to know your audience, your key who your key customers are going to be, so that you can find that, like, if your key customers are on Facebook and you're doing TikTok, you're not going to meet them where they are, and you're going to have gaps in those pieces. So there are still fundamental things that will never change when we talk about building trust, but the delivery and the tools may change a little bit, and that's why we got to stay on the cutting edge of it.
Yeah, and if people are out there saying, well, I'm on YouTube, I have videos, but are you doing shorts, right? Because people are consuming things in different ways. So even within a platform that people have been using for years and years, like YouTube, the content on that platform can change. You've got to have shorts now. So that has evolved.
I only watch shorts now. I feel like I've been on YouTube forever, and I loved YouTube from the get-go, from the jump, but there's so many ads now, because as these platforms gain traction and get bigger, that's how they make their revenue, and I understand it, but I also don't love it. And that old ad blocker on my Chrome extension doesn't work anymore. They figured it out. So Shorts is the only thing that doesn't have ads, and that's why I love watching it. But I think there's also something about how quick and direct they are. That's like you get what you want immediately. There's not like a 30-minute video you have to scrub through and look at the chapters and find. So like it again, but this is a shift that's happened in the last year or two. It's not like Shorts was something big 5 years ago that everybody was doing.
Right?
Yeah.
And I raise your hand if you've ever bought something off Instagram. I have. Yep.
Guilty.
I have. Guilty. And I watch stories. That's the thing that I do. I'm not scrolling my feed necessarily as much. So do the research, find out where your users are, and be in those places. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where SEO, again, is still relevant in search is that Google is still a major search engine. It's not dead yet. It's just changing. And the algorithms are changing. So just recently, it's so interesting. We always, when we have clients, we stay on top of their Google Search Console accounts, right? We want to see how impressions and clicks and things are changing like that in search. So it's something we look at weekly for all of our clients. And we've seen that shift with the algorithm updates lately, because they're prioritizing helpful content, right? And it's such a no-brainer, because that's the Ask You Answer. And we're saying, of course, your content has to be helpful. It should have been all this time. But they're done with the BS.
Big time.
They are done.
The next generation doesn't want. I think that's why a lot of the next generation's on TikTok, because there's none of that on TikTok.
Yeah.
None of it. They're like already aware of that. And I think it just, again, plays into the Ask You Answer. Maybe it was a little before its time, but like everyone's catching on to like the advertising practices and all the stuff that like nobody wants.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants it.
Well, we're seeing it in Google search too, because there was a huge algorithm update last spring, the helpful content update, and they said the goal was to reduce content by 40%.
Whoa.
So they wanted to just cut through the nonsense, and content that they deem to be not helpful, that doesn't meet their guidelines of helpful, they're not going to serve that anymore. And they said 40%. They ended up cutting something like 45%.
Oh, so almost half.
Almost half.
Dang.
That's insane.
That's a lot.
But it's real. They really want your content to be helpful. So people are seeing things. If you're looking at Search Console and you're saying, hey, we used to get a ton of impressions for this certain thing, and we're just not anymore. If people weren't clicking through because your content wasn't helpful, they're not going to serve you anymore.
Right.
They're getting real with this stuff.
They're getting real. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it actually does the opposite now. So those ads that maybe started to raise awareness, build trust, whatever was happening there, now is doing the opposite. So like you have to be really strategic with how you build trust and the types of things you're putting out there, because you could push people away way faster now.
Oh gosh, yeah. And local content is going to be huge for this as well, because I don't know if all y'all have seen this, but when you do a Google search now, you can type something in and then a little pop-up will show up and it will say, do you want to see results in your area? So this is new. This is within the last year or so, that even if you've got something that, nationally ranks, it's a great resource. If it's not local to you, people can say no to that. And they can say, I only want to see someone who will service me in my area. So local content is another huge shift that's getting to be more and more important now. Another thing that I wanted to highlight was voice search, right? In AI, this is another big shift that's happening. So people are using Siri more, they're using Alexa more. So you need to be optimized for natural language processing and voice queries, which are different, right? They're more conversational than
way more.
Yeah. So you've got to make sure that you are optimized for this as well, because this is only going to continue trending to be more popular.
Yeah. So for business owners and for marketing leaders and professionals out there, how do you navigate this, or what do you recommend for? I know. Here we go. Here comes the loaded question. But how do you what do you recommend for? Do you hire an agency to do this? Do you hire specialists? Do you try to learn how to do this yourself? Like, what's the best point of entry, I guess, if you're trying to optimize your SEO and you're trying to like continue to further your SEO game?
Yes. I feel like every time I'm on this podcast, Alex, I always say, it depends. Well,
and it does. There's industry specific and business size, like that all plays into this, but we say that generally speaking.
Generally speaking.
Could you tell me about SEO? Yeah.
So if you are a small local restaurant and you need more traffic now, then maybe it's a good idea to consider working with an agency, right? Because you're not necessarily in it for the long play of developing content. So that might work for you. That might be something you want to do. But if you're maybe a larger company and you have dedicated marketing departments and you've got people and you can hire someone to do some really extensive SEO initiatives, like I'm thinking if you've got e-com and you have 40,000 products and you need schema on this stuff and you need to make sure your product pages are really optimized well, then it might make sense to bring that in-house so you've got that person there, because there are so many differences and pros and cons to in-house versus outside that it really depends on that situation.
Yeah. And I think that's not just for SEO, but for agencies in general or marketing in general. It's like you really have to do what is going to be best for your particular situation and your business and whatever scenario that may be.
Yeah. We like agencies. We work with agencies. We know agencies. There are a lot of benefits to working with an agency sometimes. Mm-hmm. One of those things is that expertise, right? So when I was talking about algorithms being updated all the time, if you've got someone who, if you're an SEO agency, then it is your job to be on top of that stuff. And you've got to be on the cutting edge. Also the resources. So again, if you are an SEO agency or if you're an agency with SEO expertise, then you're going to have all the bells and whistles and tools, and you're going to have every single thing that your client might not want to pay for. Maybe you don't want to have all of those tools. You don't have the budget to have all those tools. They will have them. You'll have access to it from them. Also, an interesting one that may not come to mind is objectivity. So sometimes an agency will have a fresh perspective because they don't have that tunnel vision of your business, right? Where they're just staring the way you are about your business.
No, sometimes when you're too close to something, it's hard to see the full picture. You have to take a step back, and that's not easy to do when you're in that bubble. It really isn't.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point. To have an outside perspective can really shift everything.
Yeah. And not only will they have sometimes an outside perspective that's different, but they might work with other businesses in your industry and have some good insights of things that they've seen work or not work with other businesses. So that can be a benefit. And I think one of the last main pros I would give an agency is that it can be more cost effective. I say can, there's an asterisk on it. Can be more cost effective depending on who you go with, because on the other end of this, I have seen agencies be very expensive.
Yeah. So, and that's a good segue, because I was going to ask you about SEO agencies, because for me, I'm a small business owner. So for me, it's like, if I'm not sure how to do something, I'm going to find an expert or a consultant or a coach that is an expert to help me. Just like if when I go to the gym, I need a trainer type of thing. Right. Yeah. So the idea in my head is like, I would just go right to an SEO agency that has great ratings and that I know is like legitimate. But then what do you do from there? Because I don't know what you know about SEO. So for like a business owner, it's like, what questions should I be asking? What should I be looking for with an agency? Like what are some of those key things that are like good things to look at, and also some red flags that like, hey, maybe this isn't the right fit or the right company to go with?
Yeah, I think one of the first red flags that comes to mind is when what are the deliverables? How are they going to report on what they're doing to you? That is so huge. I know of a company that came to us because they trusted someone on our team, on our web team, and they said, can you please look at this deliverable that we got from our SEO agency, because we're spending $50,000 a year on an SEO agency. And they say that they're doing all these amazing things, and we don't understand what we're looking at, because they'll get these reports And if you're hiring an agency to begin with, you probably don't understand a lot of this stuff. So they're saying they gave us a 40-page document, but we don't even know how to read it.
Right.
Which is awful.
It's like astrophysics. It's like, I know Elon Musk is going to make it to Mars someday, but like I have no idea how the hell they're doing that, right? Because it's way out of the realm of what I'm an expert in and what I know. So like that's exactly what I was curious about is like, do they sometimes hit you with all the data and all the numbers to make it seem like it's so up in the clouds that you're never going to figure it out, and that's part of like the competitive advantage, I guess?
Yeah, but you need to understand the business outcome. You need to understand the ROI of this stuff.
Yes.
And if they can't straightforwardly say this to you, and if there is a lack of transparency there, that is a huge red flag. That is a huge problem. And unfortunately, I do see that. I absolutely do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I remember back in my old traditional advertising days when everyone was like, oh, we got you 100,000 impressions. Isn't that amazing? And it's like, I thought that was great because I didn't fully understand what impressions were back then. It was still new. Yeah. It was like, I think that's good. That sounds good. It's 100,000. That's a big number. Woo. But then it's like, oh, that's just people that saw it while they were scrolling. And
no one clicked on it.
Nobody. Yeah. The CTR rate was like 1.2%. Yeah, exactly. So those are things that like through, unfortunately, some bad experiences, I learned those things and I learned them the hard way. So hopefully having this discussion will help people get ahead of some of those hurdles that are going to come across.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting a huge list of deliverables and it's our dev looked at this and updated this and this, and you have no idea how that translates to helping your business, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because people can hide behind deliverables all day.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, if it's not helping you improve, if you're not getting leads from this stuff, then that is a problem. You need to be able to point from A to B for this to actually be effective for you.
So true. Yeah, we actually were talking with Tanner in a previous episode, Tanner Holman, who's a paid expert here at Impact, and he was saying something similar about paid, where it's the same rules kind of apply. That like just because you're putting money into something and just because there's a lot of technical stuff happening, that's all good and well, and you might be checking all these boxes and getting stuff done, but is it effective? Are you gaining more business? Are you getting more leads? Are you getting whatever that thing is to help turn the dial up? Is it doing it? And if it's not, how are you assessing and fixing and changing things to try to make that true?
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. I think that would be one of the main drawbacks to working with an agency can be a lack of control over things. So whether it's the lack of control over the strategy, if you do want to have input, because I work with some really smart clients who know about this stuff. They want to have input.
Right.
They want to have some say in strategy, and their business strategy should be aligned with the search strategy. Imagine that. So you can sometimes lose some of that control. You don't have the transparency, right? The communication can be off. It's not there. So making sure that you know what you're getting out of it is a huge part of it. And another one is consistency. So, oh man, this can break my heart sometimes. So I was just talking to a new client of ours actually the other day, and they were talking about their experience with an agency, and they said, "Oh, we loved our agency so much, and we were getting such great results, and things were awesome. And then the person we were working with got promoted, and they weren't doing that job anymore, and the quality just went pew, poof, and just totally took a nosedive." And they said, "Now we're it's a total 180. We aren't getting anywhere near the quality." And they just kind of shrugged at us, and they were like, "Well, this is your person now." So that is a huge issue that can happen, with there's turnover everywhere, but versus hiring in-house. If you've got someone in-house, you don't necessarily have to deal with that kind of thing, right?
Right. Typically you don't. If they're in-house, you don't have to, if they're in-house, you at least can shoulder tap them and you can talk to them and you can be in meetings with them and have your finger on the pulse a little bit better than if you just have an agency that you don't know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, you have no idea what's coming, right?
It's fairy dust. Yeah.
Companies can have their own turnover, right, for in-house employees, but at least, like you said, you will have your finger on that pulse and you can have conversations versus just out of the blue, that turning over and you having no control over it.
No, absolutely. Can we break down all the tasks that are necessary, whether it's an internal person or an external agency, but like what are the SEO like to-dos that people need to be thinking about?
Jeez, Alex. Okay, that is tall order because
I need a checklist.
There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into SEO. So no, I cannot give you every single thing. No.
Okay.
Incorrect, wrong, not going to happen. But I can give you a lot of good stuff.
Fair.
That can go into this. So the main one, no surprise, the first one that's probably going to come to mind for everyone is keyword research and optimization, right? This is still a thing that people need to be doing.
Let's say that one more time. Keyword research. You still need to be doing this, and optimization. You need to be doing this. It's so true.
It's true, especially when it comes to local, right? So because local search is so important, understanding not only how you're doing, but your competitors, how they're doing with local search, really important. So yes, that is task number one.
That's a great point. I don't think we've ever really said that on the show, but I don't think a lot of people do that, to look at your competition. They're always like looking, goes back to the bubble. What we're doing, our stuff, our company, they don't really look at what competition's doing, and you need to. How else are you going to be able to position yourself to get a competitive advantage? You have to. Yeah.
Well, I know. So when we talk about the Ask You Answer and Big Five content in that should very much be focused on you, not so much looking at competitors. We say that all the time, right? Is that you need to know your customers and you need to speak to your customers. Forget what other people are doing in that regard. As long as you are covering that, yes.
Yes. Totally.
If we're playing dirty and we're talking about local SEO, though, it's a little bit of a different game where you do want to know, because filling gaps can be really huge. You know, I'm focused on our web pages, right? And making sure that, you know, if we have location pages on a website, those things need to be really tight. We need to make sure we're being competitive. We need to make sure we're filling any gaps that we can.
Right.
So that's where my brain is at.
Right. It's the same thing too, though, for pricing. When we talk about principles, though, you know, like, some people may be not open to putting their prices on the website, but your customers are going to want them. So you ultimately look at your competition to try to get a gauge of like, am I in the range? Yeah. So if you're doing that, it's the same thing with SEO, where like, it's not necessarily like an ill or like bad intention thing to do. It's like, you're just trying to get a temperature gauge so you can better serve your potential customers and give them the information that they need, and just try to keep it real.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know one of the things we always talk about when it comes to pricing is if your competitors are talking about it and you're not,
what do you think's going to happen?
What do you think's going to happen? Yeah, they're going to go to your competitor.
We can tell you, because we've seen it happen all too often. Yes, we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to my incomplete list.
The list. We got all the way through number one. We're doing great. Let's go to number two.
So meta descriptions and title tags. I'm putting on my nerd hat for a moment.
Okay.
When we were talking about impressions and clicks, right? You were like, yeah, I got impressions, and nobody was clicking on your stuff. Very sorry, sad story. The thing that will help people click through is your meta description and your title tag, right? That's what shows up in search results.
Totally.
Treat it like an ad. Some people do this as throwaway copy. They're just like, I'm going to copy the first sentence on the page and I'm just going to throw it in there. No, you can't do that.
Yeah, no, you definitely can't
Don't do that. Treat it like an ad. You've got very limited space, but you need to have a call to action in there. You need to make it compelling. That is going to be the thing that gets you from an impression to a click, right? As long as you're, within the first page usually. But you've got to optimize this stuff. You've got to do a good job on that.
How does that play into the language? And like when we talk about titling and positioning, do you feel like it's important to try to, I don't want to use the word dub it down, but like get a little bit more direct and use common language that like how we would talk versus like being more formal and typing things out like how we used to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because you are competing. When you think about a SERP, a search engine result page, and you're looking at result right in a row, you have to compete with those directly next to you, and you've got to win. So what's going to win? Being very formal and being very stiff and being, over optimized is a thing, or actually being a human and talking the way your users talk and having them recognize that very quickly and easily and saying, oh, that's me. They're talking to me. That's how I talk. I get it. Yes.
And that's what we want. That's that magic. That's like, yes, this resonates with me. This makes sense.
Yes.
I'm clicking. I want to see what this is about.
Yes, exactly. So that's huge. Readability is another one that I think some people kind of forget with SEO, because I mentioned over optimization just a second ago. It's possible if you are writing too much like a robot. And have you ever opened a web page, Alex, and been like, this is an SEO play? Because the heading on the page, every single heading is like, pizza near me, or
1,000%. Yeah. I see it all the time. And now the new thing is I'm starting to see a lot of GPT lingo. And I'm like, somebody copy and pasted that right out of GPT. Like they didn't even try to put a little spin of their own language into it. So those are things you have to be mindful of, because your brand voice depends on it. Your brand voice is what connects with your potential customers.
Exactly.
That's the key. And that's fundamental stuff here.
Yeah. And that's why we always say, we love AI. We use AI. We use it to help write copy, but it's gotta be human. You've got to have a human editor, and you've got to make it sound like you and be like you. So either really, 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 really train your bot, like I know some people do here, is you put in a ton of work to train your bot to sound like you, have the tone, and do the human editing, or, have the bot start the thing and then your humans finish it. But either way.
Totally. And you can train, don't get me wrong, GPT is amazing. Like you can train it to do all sorts of wonderful things in the language and getting the right voice and all that stuff, but you still need to have a human touch to it and make sure that it's on brand and it's on messaging and all that.
Yeah, people are smart enough to recognize it.
Yes, they are.
So readability is huge, and making sure you've got the headings that it's funny. People can get headings wrong on their websites. Really, what you want to do is tell people, orient them to the section they're in. What's going to be in this next section? Sounds really basic, right? Someone will just say something like, from our hearts to yours, and it's like, what?
The more you know. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
What does that mean? I'm not going to read what comes after that. Come on. No. So have headings that are clear and are compelling and that are optimized. Please. Yeah. Along with your, of course, traditional bullet points, clear paragraphs, things like that improve readability.
We were actually just talking about this for what we do with the show. I was talking with Bob, our CEO, just yesterday, and we were talking about how your heading should really be like your one thing. Yeah. It's like if you in one word or in like the shortest you can get it, really explain what's in this section, and then that section reinforces that idea. Yes. That's like the dream. That's the dream scenario. That's what you want to try to get to. Yes. And it's easier said than done, but like that's what you want to try to achieve as you're doing this.
Yeah, because we've been talking about how people consume content, right? And they skim. And that's what those headings are. People go heading. Mm-hmm. And if you capture them in that heading, then they will read the rest of what you have. So they are critically important. You've got to pull them in and let them know exactly what that is, set that expectation so they'll keep going.
Yeah, and in my video mind, because I am a video expert, it's the same thing with YouTube. When you have chapters, the chapter title with a little bit of the description, and people can scrub through and find exactly what they need in the video where they need it, so they don't have to watch 30 minutes of extraneous content that doesn't really pertain to anything that they need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which goes into the next thing on the list, which is auditing your page content. So you still need to be doing this. This still has to be on the tag list.
So number 4 is audit.
Yes. Okay. Are we on 4?
Yeah. 3 was reading. I'm keeping up. 3 was reading. 4 is audit.
So make sure you're doing auditing, and because you always hear me say, right, your website is never done. So put something out there, audit and optimize. So audit what you're doing, optimize. This needs to be done regularly. You can't just do a thing. God, I think I said this exact same thing last time. I'm like triggering myself. But you've got to make sure that you're throwing something out there, but then revisiting, because once you optimize something once, it's never done.
Yeah. I feel like in the world that we live in nowadays, with where technology is at and with how people use and leverage technology, that's true for SEO. It's true for your website. It's true for paid. It's true for pretty much all of your content to some extent. Like you can't just throw something out there and then forget about it and not ever revisit it if you want it to continue to be effective and continue to drive business and traffic for you.
I know. It's amazing how many people we talk to and we'll say, oh, so we did this thing. And I'll say, okay, so how is it doing? How's it performing? How's it going? And they just look at me. Silence. We don't know.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going to change that. All right.
We need data.
Yeah. We're going to change that.
We need data. And we know how much you love data.
I do.
Yes.
I really do.
Yeah.
So next one on the list, competitor analysis. I talked about that already a bit, but data behind that. We need to have some data behind our competitors to inform some of what we're doing when it comes to SEO and optimization.
Sure.
Okay. Because we've covered that, I'm going to go down to, are we on 6?
We're on 6 now. Mm-hmm.
Internal linking.
Okay.
Internal linking, really, really important. And
can you explain? I want to learn more about this because I feel like a noob with this one. I know what it is, like face value, but I would love to get a deeper understanding of what this means.
So when we talk about crawling and we talk about crawlers crawling a website, we call them spiders, right? And we say they're crawling because it's such a great visual for what they do. And when they get to a website, they really imagine a web, that goes to all these other different pieces of the web. Your site needs to do that. You need to have internal links linking one page to another page to another page to allow the spiders to crawl very easily and connect all of this stuff and say, these things go together. These ideas go together.
Got it.
It's like pillar content, right? So when we say we've got this pillar, it's this main page that comprehensively talks about this one topic, but then links out to all these other pages that are related about that particular topic, go into more detail.
Right.
Your website needs to do that. You need to be linking all of your pages together to make sure that the crawlers can get to everything and to pass along that SEO juice. Fun fact, I hate that. I hate that phrase, SEO juice. I think it's weird.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
Oh, it's very common.
Yeah?
It's very common in the web world.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, don't like it.
Okay.
But it's a thing.
But it's a thing.
You need to make sure.
Feelings aside, this thing is SEO juice.
I'm nothing if not honest, Alex.
Remember Tang? I'm thinking about when we were kids. I'm thinking about like that's what the mental image I have in my head right now is like drink SEO juice and you'll crush it. Your SEO will go through the roof. No, I don't know.
But you need it. You need it. And so the next item on my list goes back to this. So backlinking is really important, right? And the difference here is instead of linking internally between your pages, it's gaining a link from someone else's site, right?
Yes.
So having a site with good domain authority, a trusted site that has helpful content, when they link to you, that adds to your authority. That's a good thing. You want to have high quality backlinks. It's work you need to do to get them. But when you have backlinks to a page and you have a page with good authority, linking it to other pages that you're trying to boost will help. So the more internal links that you have, the better you can raise up all the rest of your website. So all of this stuff goes together. All of this stuff really important.
That makes sense. No, that makes a ton of sense. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
I think I understood it, but the way that you the way that you painted that picture just now makes way more sense to me. And it's one of those things where like if you're backlinking to other sites that are also trusted sites, it just helps raise awareness and lets people know that your brand is also part of these brands that are that are good, that are like certified good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that have a good track record.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so next one is image and video optimization. So I'm sure you have something to say about this.
I might.
Because this is your world. But a lot of people do focus on the copy on their websites and they forget to optimize their images and videos. You can tell me what you see on the video side from an image perspective. I'm talking about making sure that your file names are descriptive and they say what they are. And the file isn't like MP4 123476612.
You know what though? It sounds silly. We're laughing, but this happens all too often where like people are busy. I edit the show. So like you're on deadline, you edit the show, you crank it out, you put in whatever like numbers and digits, cause that's like your filing system and then you upload it.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. Cause then your file that has some weird numbers and digit gadget thing doesn't match the title that you're pairing it with, and it's a whole mess. So that's really an important piece.
Yes, all of this stuff matters because all of it, if you think about every little thing, whether it's the file name or the alt text, right, on the image or the video that says what the visual is showing, it's data points. And the more data points you have on a piece of content, the better informed the search engines are. And when they're better informed, they can say, okay, I know exactly what this is, and this matches this person's query, so I'm going to serve this.
Right, and that's the key. It's like computing, like this all checks because the titles and the formatting all matches up.
Yes.
So it must be right, and then I can send it. Where if it's not matching up, that might be a point of contention where they won't serve you up for people that are searching for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So make sure that your images, your videos are optimized for SEO and also, of course, for size. You know, on my web soapbox, I see this stuff. This can be such a culprit for page speed when we're talking about more technical SEO, and we're talking about page performance, and people get super freaked out about core vitals. And this is the number one killer for page performance and page speed, right? Is someone will be like, we put this amazing video on our hero, and it slows down your website.
Yeah. They're like, it's in 4K and it looks amazing and and then it's like, and it's it's bogging the whole thing down.
9 times out of 10, not worth it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about the beautiful video that everyone right now, they're thinking on their website, like, oh, we spent $5,000 on this video. But if it's slowing down your website because it's not optimized, problem, not worth it.
Totally. And there are some embedding options that you can do. Like certain players are better than others. Like I know Vimeo is a great one for embedding where you can get high quality and have a little bit of both, but it does play into your load speeds and your load time. So those are things you have to take into consideration. And ultimately, people are on your website because you're attracting them to do business with you. They're not there because they paid $15 to see a movie and it's date night, you know? So like, even though the quality may not be the best that you shot it at for that one particular instance, if you're focusing on it, you're almost like missing the point of what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Which was a tough pill for me to swallow because I am a quality control freak and I'm like, everything has to be all the settings on my editing station and on the cameras and everything are turned all the way up. Because why would you pay for a camera that shoots in 8K and you only shoot in 1080? Like that's my mentality. But I'm learning. I'm growing. It's pretty.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
How am I doing? Am I doing good?
You're doing great. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, Mary.
Proud of you.
Thank you. No, I'm learning, and this is the key to. We're joking, but the key to this really is ultimately it's not about me and my videos. It's about attracting more people to help them with their businesses, with their sales, with their marketing. So it's not about little old me and what I want. Okay, and that's something that we also talk about all the time with the Ask You Answer. Is people need to know that your business isn't me, us.
Yeah,
it's we're here to help our customers, and the customers are number one, and that's a fundamental thing that you have to figure out.
Yeah, we always joke that doing a new website for people is oftentimes feels like therapy because we have to have these big conversations where we're like,
do you make them lay down on the couch and everything and do the whole like?
It's not about you. It's not about you. We need to focus on them. It's about the customer. And they're like, okay, I can accept that. I can do, and then, things improve.
Well, you know what the real thing is, whether you agree or you're not, however you feel about it, when you start to actually do it, the proof is in the pudding. So for me, I wasn't fully bought into that when I first started reading the Ask You Answer, and I was like, no, but it's still important. Like who you are and what you bring to the table is still important, and the us part is still important. And that's what I was thinking until we made these shifts, and then I started to see the results, and then I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong, and maybe this isn't all about me. And when the results start to come in and speak for themselves, it's kind of hard not to understand that and see it and want to put it into practice more.
Absolutely. It's so funny, I think, the way marketers can forget themselves as consumers, right? Because we are all consumers, all of us, every one of us. But when, for some reason, when we get into marketing, we just forget, to flip the script and to say, how do I feel as a user? I have to force myself to do that in my job all the time, where I have to say, flip the script. If I am the user, this experience would frustrate the hell out of me. I would hate that. So I can't recommend that. I can't do that. If I go to a website and someone's just jaw-jacking about themselves and it's us, me, this is how we're different, that's going to turn me off because that's how I am as a consumer. You got to remember that.
So true. How does that play into SEO? Same rules apply?
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that, people always ask about this delicate balance between keywords and they Ask You Answer. How does this stuff work together? It absolutely works together. It has to work together because they Ask You Answer first, right? We're making sure that we are answering people's questions. We're being transparent. We are building that trust. And also when people ask questions, they use keywords in their questions, right? They are searching and they're
shocking.
I know. So you need to find out what those keywords are and optimize with that. They play beautifully together.
They do.
People, I think, sometimes think it's got to be one or the other. We don't care about keywords. They go together.
They do go together, and that's why I love the Big Five. Honestly, that's like when I first heard that. When I think it was either Marcus or Zach, whoever was telling me about it first, the first interaction, it was mind blowing. It was like, yeah, I do look for best up content. Yeah, I do this. I do, and everyone does that. Yeah, it's like inadvertently how we search for things. It's just become like the norm for how we prompt the internet to give us back what we need.
Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying keyword research and optimization and competitor analysis and all that stuff. It's finding out what people are asking and what they're searching for and optimizing that way. That's it. Yeah. It's the same old thing that has been working for years and years.
So do you have any stories that you could share from the streets? No, but for real, some client stories, or you help a lot of businesses and a lot of people and professionals with SEO, with websites, with everything we've been talking about. Do you have an example of maybe somebody that, like, a company brought somebody in-house, or they started to really focus on their SEO and they went from A to B, something like that? Yeah.
So we just recently had someone come to us and say that very thing of, we've never really focused on SEO. I think it was one of those conversations where I'll ask a question like, okay, so what does your SEO strategy look like to date? And again, it was just big eyes and blinks, and we've never had one. We've never had a strategy. So we started having.
What's that acronym mean again? SEO what? Yeah.
So we'll and I always say, like, it's okay, it's all right, we can do this.
Yeah.
And we started talking about, local is huge for them. They've got to compete locally because they don't serve a national audience. They're in a very particular area of the country. So we said, okay, we know we got to do the big 5 and we got to make it local, right? This is the thing. We got to talk about, top 5 contractors in X city because we got to do this stuff and make it local so that you can be found there. And the thing that you find is when you do that, you're going to get found, and you're going from, because they were focused nationally, or they were writing things too broadly, we're on page 5, we're on page 6 because we're not, they might be writing the right articles too broadly. So when they took that local focus and they started saying, okay, we're going to focus on writing the big 5 and writing it in our area, they're ranking number 1 in that area. They're ranking number 2 and number 3 in that area.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because they just shifted that perspective.
Yeah.
And so I have seen that happen, and I've seen people be successful with that. And
getting specific too is a good point. That's a really good point. I think sometimes the safety net is like, we'll just keep this broad, so we have a wider net that we might attract or hit, and that doesn't usually pan out the way that people think it's going to.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it is changing. When I led this whole segment off by saying, the landscape is changing. You can't be too broad, too general necessarily anymore. You've got to focus on being more specific. You've got to focus on being in your area, so that. And sometimes one of the arguments I hear, and I heard from this particular client, was like, "But the volume is so low for these terms." But if you nail it, like, think about it. If you're playing the percentage game, if you nail those lower volume local keywords that are right for you in that area, in those big 5 articles you're writing, and you get those super qualified people, and your website is set up for conversion, your conversion rates are going to go
through the roof, and your sales team is going to be so happy.
Yes.
So happy, because they're not going to have a bunch of leads that aren't really qualified that they have to try to like strong arm into being qualified, and that just extends the whole sales process and takes time and money and all the stuff that really bogs things down.
Yes. Yeah. So I've seen it. I have seen it work, and it's a beautiful thing what it does. I get really excited when
amazing.
I see that happen.
So last question. We're almost at the end here. What's the one thing that you would say to our audience, to our listeners, to our viewers, that they should take away from this conversation? Like, what's the one SEO nugget that they should really be thinking about? No pressure.
Well, okay. The one thing about this is that it's changing, and if anyone tells you it's not, then they're lying to you, and that you need to do research or talk to someone you trust about this stuff, who will be transparent with you, who will tell you, that we can't predict the future about it, and will at least be willing to have those conversations, right? So someone who can do that with you is a friend, right? Someone who can say...
As an ally, yes, definitely.
Is exactly someone that you want on your team.
Yeah, well said. I couldn't agree more. Thanks so much for your time and for being on the show and for just dropping some knowledge for us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're going to have you back on to talk about this in the near future as it continues to change and evolve as we move forward here.
Maybe next week, Alex. We'll see.
All right. Well, thanks, Mary. Love having you on the show. And for everybody out there watching and listening, this is Endless Customers. I'm your host, Alex. We'll see you on the next episode.